An American-held prisoner by North Korea is on his way home tonight, but under far less than ideal circumstances. It comes as the communist regime hosts another visit by this country's unlikely, unofficial diplomat. Correspondent Rich Edson is at the State Department tonight with the latest. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Brett. And Otto Warmbier is on his way back to Ohio. He will receive a full medical evaluation when he arrives, as North Korean diplomats say he has been in a coma for a year. This comes as a State Department official says a week ago the U.S. met with North Korea's ambassador to the United States. That's when North Korea informed the U.S. of Warmbier's condition. A State Department official says the U.S. then told North Korea it was sending a delegation and medical team to Pyongyang. They landed yesterday. Members of the medical team evaluated Warmbier and confirmed his condition. They took off for the United States today. And this morning, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announced the release.
The Department of State has secured the release of Otto Warmbier from North Korea. He is on his way en route home to be reunited with his family. We continue our discussions with the North Korean regime regarding the release of the 3 other American citizens that have been detained.
In January 2016, North Korean officials detained Warmbier, claiming he stole a poster. They sentenced him that March to 15 years in prison. Former basketball star Dennis Rodman has just returned to North Korea. The State Department says Rodman's visit had nothing to do with Warmbier's release. Now, after Secretary of State Tillerson announced Warmbier's release, he testified his first of the week of congressional panels, 4 congressional panels this week, the first such sessions he'll be subjected to since his confirmation hearings. And in doing so, a bipartisan group of senators has just announced an agreement on a set of strong Russia sanctions. It would really and severely limit what the Trump administration could do if it sought to roll back sanctions against Russia. The Secretary of State in these hearings refused to endorse those sanctions.
I think what we would like is the flexibility to turn that heat up when we sense that our efforts with Russia, whether it be in Syria, we have engagements that they have asked for us to engage with them on Ukraine. So we have some channels that are open where we're starting to talk, and I think what I wouldn't want to do is close the channels off.
Aides close to the sanctions negotiations say Senators McCain and Graham, Portman and Cardin, among others, pushed for this robust set of sanctions, trying to ensure a strong policy against the Putin regime. This day started at the Secretary of State, or for the Secretary of State, with a meeting with the Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister Al Jaber, as Saudi Arabia, Egypt and others have severed diplomatic ties with Qatar. The State Department says that the worst is behind us in this diplomatic fight between Qatar and its allies, though it is unclear if and when those nations will relax the sanctions that they have put in place. Brett.
Rich, thanks. The administration is also reviewing U.S. policy toward Cuba and could make a move this week. The Trump administration at some point soon to make an announcement as to what U.S. policy will be under this administration towards Cuba. You remember a couple of years ago, the Obama administration reestablished diplomatic relations, making it easier for Americans to travel to Cuba, for businesses to invest in Cuba. The State Department and opponents of those policies in this administration says Cuba has failed to improve its human rights record, and therefore it should not have exchanged the previous administration those concessions.
We have to achieve in approaching Cuba is, if we're going to sustain the sunny side of this relationship, Cuba must, absolutely must, begin to address its human rights challenges.
Democrats argue that hasn't stopped this administration from seeking better relationships with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Philippines, Turkey and Russia. Brett?
We're working on getting details of that new Cuba policy. Continue to follow that. Rich Edson at the State Department. Rich, thank you.